Yeah.
Like, here's,
So let's see, the higher altitude or lower altitude.
but it only happens in surgery, which they say has nothing to do with surgery. It does.
Did it go?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Right. Okay. We're live.
Okay.
Yes. I had this red jacket. I had to do it. Yeah.
Well,
I guess kind of. That was good.
Hey, Brett. Thanks for coming.
Nope.
you guys aren't staying the whole time, so you're not going to critique me, are you? Okay. Call the meeting to order with a roll call vote.
Right House,
Here.
Fox,
Here.
Dr. Stroh,
Here.
Mac, here, Berglund.
Here.
Jones. Absent. Otto.
Here.
Wilhelm.
Here.
Thank you. Reading of the District Commission and Vision by Director Mack. I know I was just waiting for it to get ready.
Our mission, regardless of who you are or what your story is, you can learn and be loved here. Our vision, creating compassionate problem solvers. Our operating principles, information for one is information for all. No surprises, verify facts, think ahead, disagree, explain your thinking, then commit.
Are there any additions or corrections to the agenda?
One correction, Secretary. Yeah, I have resignation at Jim Lumberg, ninth grade football.
Else?
Can I ask you a quick question? When's that effective?
Immediately.
Oh, okay. Just thought I'd ask. Thank you.
Is there a motion to approve the agenda as corrected?
I'll make the motion. Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the agenda as corrected. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Do we have any visitors for public comment tonight? Okay, I'm gonna read that then. Comments by board members and superintendent.
We have a video we want to show. We've been trying to showcase our mission and vision and the work that we're doing. So the testimonial from a student tonight that we'll share, and I'll summarize my comments.
I made a 97% jump, which is equal to 5 grade levels on my Iowa assessment scores for math. I was actually really proud of myself for making that kind of jump. It was kind of shocking. I was like, wow, I actually did that. I think that it teaches problem solving skills. As for like when you're at a grocery store, you don't get equations. You get handed, here's how much it is, figure it out yourself. And that's kind of what Agile Mind teaches you, how to problem solve and find things out on your own. It was making me a lot better, and not even just in school, but like out in the real world, applying this to real world issues and problems. It is working, even though a lot of kids don't see it, it is definitely working.
All right, additional comments for me. Strategic focus area 1 of engagement, work experience update. We have a lot of cool things going with our strategic plan around work experience. We're working on creating, crafting partnerships with local businesses to get this going. And then we're also having to create lots of work behind it for expectations for the kids, expectations for the business partners. You know, it's not the old co-op model. We're not hiring kids to come out and just, you know, push a broom. They have to actually be engaging in the work, wherever that is. I think we have right now 6 in a pilot for work experience. We're also discussing with the state of Iowa Workforce Development, a scale for applied apprenticeships, which is a like work experience, but much more robust. In both places, you would earn high school credits. And the apprenticeship, it's much more robust. So you could actually end up with a federal certificate of mastery. This is really neat. We actually heard of one in Boone where Fairway had done a apprenticeship where you could be a certified butcher. And so there's a lot of things that you can wrap that around. And finally is CAPS, which is more work experience for college bound. And so we're doing these all as pilots, getting them going, and then we're trying to work towards a quick scale up as we get these going in the next year. We also are having continued design meetings with our fairground partners and the Career Academy. We have a meeting with them this week, so hoping again to break ground here pretty soon. Equity, strategic focus area 2, our equity team leadership continues to review our focus group results. We had focus groups last year with students and with staff, and we're working on creating recommendations and action steps for each campus based on that work. But for example, one of the things that we saw in focus group was door handles that we had to work on. Another thing was hall duty. Our kids don't feel there's enough teachers and adults in the hall to help provide supervision, keep kids safe. Strategic focus area 3 of leadership. I'm happy to report our student teaching academy was directly responsible for 2 hires this year. We had 2 mid-year hires, and we're able to land 2 awesome teachers mid-year. So we continue to reap the results of what we sow with the Student Teaching Academy. Strategic focus area 4, healthy culture. Our long-term subs are all in place for the semester. We are hearing positive comments about it. We'll continue to review its effectiveness, but also its cost sustainability, because again, we have a pilot. And then one thing, it's not on my comment sheet, but I just want to address publicly. In the press recently, we are hearing a lot of really negative things about public education, and it's really been disconcerting and challenging for me. We are open to critique. We're open on ways to get better, but to have teachers called sinister, have them question their morals and their ethics, and it's been very, very challenging. So just want to thank our teachers publicly for the work they're doing and how thankless it's been and how hard it's been this year. A lot of us said it's probably harder this year than it's been in the past. And I know there's a lot of people that love our public educators and really wrap their arms around them. I just don't know. Sometimes when you hear the negativity, it's really hard to drown that out. And just, we love them and thank them. We can always get better. We own that. But for people to question our intentions is really hard. So just thank you to our Charles City family, our staff. They're doing a remarkable job. So that's my comments tonight.
Second that.
I don't know if this is the right time, but I just want to mention that the Pops concert is tomorrow night. And it's at the old building, and you can only use the front door. It's at 7 o'clock and there's limited parking, so plan ahead.
Anybody else?
Students, anything you want to talk about?
Okay, thank you. Committee reports. I think Dr. Short, you're the only one that has one.
We had a equity and achievement committee on February 3rd at noon. I attended by Zoom. Talked about the Charleston City Community School District Curriculum Management and Assessment System. Went over a few thoughts regarding that. It's going to be presented to us again for formal discussion amongst the entire board today by Mrs. DeBoer, and we'll wait till then for further.
Thank you. So as we begin our presentations tonight, I just want to remind everyone that we're going to let them complete the presentation before we start asking any questions, and that remember that we're going to ask clarifying questions and not question the program or an approach that's being taken. Talk about that at our retreat. few weeks ago. Okay. Guys are up, the FFA group.
So, hi, Brett Spurgeon, one of the FFA advisors. And so we have our parliamentary procedure team here tonight. Olivia Krieger, Lauren Stout, Taylor Quaid, Maddie House, and Maggie Boss. And they will be going through and completing 5 different abilities of parliamentary procedure for. I forgot. Anyways, 5. They've learned 12 so far for our sub-district contest, which is next Thursday at St. Ansgar. We have 22 students competing in 9 events, the 9 events that they have for the sub-district level. And so they'll be going through them and then answering some questions about parliamentary procedure.
We are now holding a meeting of the Charles City FFA Parliamentary Procedure Team. Mr. Chairperson, what is our first ability and item of business?
Your ability is to receive and dispose of a main motion. And your item of business is collect food for the local food pantry.
You have heard our first ability and item of business. What is the pleasure of the group?
Madam Chairperson,
Taylor.
I move to collect food for the local food pantry.
Second. This motion has been properly moved and seconded to collect food for the local food pantry. This motion is debatable, amendable, and requires a majority vote. Is there any discussion?
Madam Chairperson,
Taylor.
collecting food for the local food pantry is a great community service project for our chapter. It will provide our community with resources that are needed at the food pantry. It'll also be an easy enough community service thing for our chapter members to complete. Please vote this motion's approval.
Madam Chairperson,
Maggie.
Taylor makes a great point that this motion would benefit our community. Not only would this benefit, or would this be an easy community service project for our members to participate in, it would also help lower income families of our town. This would benefit all, and I urge you all to vote yes.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, we will now proceed to vote. All those in favor of collect food for the local food pantry, please rise. Thank you. All those opposed, please rise. The ayes have it and the motion is adopted. We will collect food for the local food pantry. Lauren, will you assume the duties of the chair?
Mr. Chairperson, what is our next ability and item of business?
Your ability is to rise to a point of order, and your item of business is host an agricultural advocacy event.
You have now heard our ability and item of business. What is the pleasure of the group?
Madam Chairperson,
Maddie.
I move to host an agriculture advocacy event.
Second.
It has been properly moved and seconded to host an agriculture advocacy event. This motion is debatable, amendable, and requires a majority vote to pass. Is there any discussion?
Madam Chairperson,
Maddie.
I wish to speak in favor of this motion. Not only would hosting an agriculture advocacy event benefit our FFA members, but it would also benefit our school district and community. It would allow us all to come together and share our basic knowledge and information about agriculture. I urge you all to vote yes.
Madam Chairperson,
Olivia.
I move to.
I rise to a point of order.
Taylor, state your point.
Olivia cannot make a main motion while there is already a main motion on the floor.
Point taken. Olivia, you cannot make a main motion when there is already a main motion on the floor. Is there any further discussion on the main motion, which reads, host an agriculture advocacy event? Seeing none, we will now proceed to vote. All those in favor of hosting an agriculture advocacy event, raise your right hand. Thank you. All those opposed, raise your right hand. The ayes have it and the motion is adopted. We will host an agriculture advocacy event. Taylor, will you please assume the duties of the chair?
Mr. Chairperson, what is our next ability and item of business?
Your ability is to take from the table, and your item of business is plan a chapter officer retreat.
You have heard our next ability and item of business. What is the pleasure of the group?
Madam Chairperson,
Lauren,
I move to take from the table the motion relating to plan and a chapter officer retreat.
second. It has been properly moved and seconded to take from the table the motion relating to planning a chapter officer retreat. This motion is not debatable or amendable and requires a majority vote to pass. All those in favor of taking from the table the motion relating to plan a chapter officer retreat, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say no. The ayes have it and the motion is taken from the table. Is there any discussion on the main motion, which reads, plan a chapter officer event?
Madam Chairperson,
Lauren,
our officers recently have been hard at work with different community service and school projects, and I know that going on a chapter retreat would be a great way for them to just relax and get to know each other a little bit more. I urge you all to vote yes.
Madam Chairperson,
Maggie,
planning a chapter officer retreat would also increase the bonding of our members, which would, in the long run, increase our chapter. I urge you all to vote yes.
is there any further discussion? Seeing none, we will now proceed to vote. All those in favor of planning a chapter officer retreat, raise your right hand. Thank you. Those opposed, raise your right hand. The ayes have it and the motion is adopted. We will plan a chapter officer retreat. Maddie, will you please assume the duties of the chair?
Mr. Chairperson, what is our next ability and item of business?
Your ability is to refer to a committee, and your item of business is plan a bake sale.
You have heard our next ability and item of business. What is the pleasure of the group?
Madam Chairperson,
Maggie, I move to plan a bake sale.
second.
It has been properly moved and seconded to plan a bake sale. This motion is debatable, amendable, and requires a majority vote to pass. Is there any discussion?
Madam Chairperson,
Maggie,
I wish to speak in favor of this motion. Up to this point, there have not been any clubs or teams in our town to host a bake sale, meaning that this would be a refreshing fundraiser for our chapter. I urge you all to vote yes.
thank you.
Madam Chairperson,
Taylor,
although Maggie makes some great points, this is going to be a lot of planning necessary. I move to refer this motion to a committee of 3 to be appointed by the chair with full power to act and to report back at the next meeting.
Second.
it has been properly moved and seconded to refer this motion to a committee of 3 appointed by the chair with full power to act and report back at the next meeting. This motion is debatable, amendable, and requires a majority vote to pass. Is there any discussion?
Madam Chairperson,
Lauren,
I would like to be on this committee.
thank you.
Madam Chairperson,
Maggie,
I would like to be on this committee.
thank you. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, we will now proceed to vote. All those in favor of referring this motion to a committee of 3, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say no. The ayes have it, and this motion is referred to a committee of 3. The committee will consist of Lauren, Taylor, and Maggie. Maggie, will you please assume the duties of the chair?
Mr. Chairperson, what is our final ability and item of business?
Your ability is to adjourn, and your item of business is buy 2 iPads for the chapter.
You have heard our ability and item of business. What is the pleasure of the group?
Madam Chairperson,
Maddie,
I move to buy 2 iPads for the chapter.
Second.
it has been properly moved and seconded to buy 2 iPads for the chapter. This motion is debatable, amendable, and requires a majority vote to pass. Is there any discussion?
Madam Chairperson,
Maddie,
seeing as our FFA funds are substantial right now, I believe that this would be a great way to put our funds towards some educational uses for our FFA chapter. I urge you all to vote yes.
is there any further discussion on the main motion, which reads, buy 2 iPads for the chapter? Seeing none, we will now proceed to vote. All those in favor of buying 2 iPads for the chapter, please rise. Thank you. All those opposed, please rise. The ayes have it, and the motion is adopted. We will buy 2 iPads for the chapter. Madam Chairperson,
Lauren,
seeing as our meeting is running a bit late, I move to adjourn.
Second.
It has been properly moved and seconded to adjourn this meeting. This motion is not debatable nor amendable and requires a majority vote to pass. All those in favor of adjourning this meeting, please raise your right hand. Thank you. Those opposed, raise your right hand. The ayes have it and the meeting is adjourned. Mr. Chairperson, we have now properly demonstrated all abilities and items of business. We are ready to entertain your questions.
Olivia, what is the purpose of a main motion?
To bring item of business to the assembly.
Lauren, is an appeal amendable?
No.
Taylor, your question is two parts. Can the privileged motion to adjourn be made while business is pending?
Yes,
Explain your answer.
as long as the time and date has been set for the next meeting.
Maddie, what record is kept for the proceedings of a committee meeting?
The secretarial report.
Maggie, what vote is required to adopt the privilege device to raise a question of privilege?
Chair rules.
Yeah, I'll call you guys when I need some help, okay? Great job.
When's date?
Thursday. Oh, not
No.
today.
Sorry.
Sub-district.
Yeah.
Next Thursday.
Yeah, next Thursday.
How many schools will be participating?
Is there 5?
There's 10
Oh,
10 schools in our sub-district, but normally there's 5, 7 other teams that so we'll have a parliamentary procedure team.
Do they all have the same procedures, motions?
Nope, not every time.
So they change.
Oh, no, every group will, yeah. Yeah,
They have the same thing that they have to do?
Yep.
Are they allowed to have notes?
They get the item of business. So they'll know the item of business, but they won't know the ability before they walk in the room. So they gotta have a 12.
So how many do you get quizzed on? 5?
Definitely 5. Everybody has to act as the chair.
Okay.
It looked really nice. You did a nice job.
Just
All
a
shot at
minute.
the same place.
Thank you.
thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thanks, Brenda.
Thank you. Span of care leaders presentation and discussion, executive director. Mr. Camp.
All right, how we doing? Got my presentation ready to go. Speech. Presentation, no. Shared with you.
I got shared with Jose, that'd be awesome.
What? Yeah, if it's on the agenda, can you pull it up, Justin?
No, but we can share it real quick. Last name, Jose Torres.
All right, I could talk through just the first little bit. First off, Tom Harskamp, Executive Director of Student Engagement and Leadership. The Span of Care or SOC team, well, let's put together. I think I'm gonna hire Jose. It's for our teachers, and it's for our teachers to take care of other teachers. And as middle school, when I was a middle school assistant principal and middle school co-principal, we have a lot of great leaders, and one of the things we ask them to do is just be checking in on their people, because I just did the math. One principal at Washington with 45 staff is a lot to ask for one person to check in on all those people and make sure they're being taken care of. So our Span of Care leadership system, we revamped it a little bit this year. I always go to videos, and if you're not a movie fan, then maybe you haven't seen this, but the movie Inside Out. So we want to go ahead and show this little clip. It's like a minute and a half.
Oh, they were wonderful. Once we flew back in time, we had breakfast twice that day. Sounds amazing. I bet Riley liked it. Oh, she did. We were best friends. Yeah. Okay, now. Come on. The train station is this way.
All right. So how's that fit in with what we're doing? And you're like, what in the world? And that's kind of how my brain works in movies. You think about what did Joy want to do, right? She wanted to cover up what was going on and just like, we got to keep moving. We got to keep going. We got to keep going. And what she learns throughout that movie is that sometimes you need to sit with people and be with them in their situation. And that's what we're, here's what we tried to do the first 3 years I was in the district. We tried to have somebody who was a driver go, sit with teachers and try and empathize with them. Well, if that's not in their wiring, it's not who they are. Guess what? People got mad, got irritated, they butted heads. How come they're not doing what I'm asking? And we had a bunch of just really unclear expectations for what those team leaders were asked to do. And so we split it. One of the areas is the span of care. And I'm going to go through this real quickly. So go to the next slide. Show that again. One, there was an application process. People had to apply to do this. It was just teachers, and it's about making sure, and I'll go through some of this, but it is a stipend position. It's campus specific with some overlap. And another clip that I was going to show is called a video called Under the Surface. Actually, I'll just email it to you so you have it. But it's a video of a school day, and it shows all these different kids, and then a little clip next to their name about what they're going through. And then it shows staff and a little like a teacher walking down the hallway and what they're going through. And then a principal, what they're going through, like little things that could be simple, like a teacher feeling pressure because their test scores aren't high enough. Could be a kid, I haven't eaten since breakfast yesterday, right? I'm hungry. Where can I get my next meal? These are the things that are going on in all of our kids' head. And then there was a teacher walking in the hallway and it says, my husband just lost his job. I don't know what to do. But I just did a training with their span of care leaders on Thursday of last week. And what I know and what we're trying to build is so that teacher, if that's happening into our teacher, we have somebody checking in on them and saying, how are you holding up? And the timing has to be right? Hey, we may need to sit with somebody on the edge of the cliff and say, hey, I'm here for you. What do you need? But sometimes it's not even, sadness didn't do anything, right? She just sat there. Said, I know, that's a bummer. You had a lot of great memories, right? And so giving them some skills to already have talents there, but giving them some other skills to be able to empathize with people and then really do our work. Because our work isn't to sit and cry, right? Even though it's some days that happens, right? But our work is we got to teach kids. We have the opportunity to teach kids on a daily basis, and we want to empower our people to take care of themselves and also have some systems in place. So if things are really rough, we can help out. We can wrap our hands around it. So campus specific, a team of staff is in their span. So like if I'm a span of care leader, I have 8 to 10 people that I check in on a regular basis. Go to the next slide. They check in regularly. What does that mean? Using key phrases, which we've taught them. We've got empathy training that all of our staff are doing. How are you holding up? Okay. If you say, how are you doing? The answer, everybody know the answer? The Iowa answer, am I know? Fine, right? But how are you holding up? I don't know. Yeah, it's cold and blah, 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 right? And it's people that they're connected to already. So it's not like I'm developing a relationship with somebody I don't know. And that's the teams that we set up. What's the support mean? Well, if you're out sick, Or if you're out with a death in the family, we have people that are bringing them meals potentially, or reaching out when they're outside of school, or simple things like, hey, we're going to do like the middle school today, they were scheduled to do a massage therapist on campus today to help. That was our Hispanic care team at the middle school. They say we're going to organize this. Turns out Hispanic care, or that lady massage therapist got sick. We're going to reschedule it, but like they had organized that to, hey, here's a thing we can do for our staff to help support them, show them that we were paying attention. The Hispanic care leaders, their job is to be like the conduit of information to the principal, to the administration. Hey, just so you know, this person's really struggling, or hey, just so you know, this person's just got X, Y, and Z happen that was great in their life. Because not everybody wants to go brag about what's going on in their life, right? Some people are very, very private, which is fine. But we also want to recognize and not know that they're walking around the halls, that we know that we're aware, we're paying attention to their life outside of the building. Like I said, a liaison or a mouthpiece of the campus, just how they go, things that are happening on each campus, what they do for as a team. And this is what we met about, just like what are they doing at the high school, Lincoln, Washington, the innovative campus, and then also the middle school and the high school here. So go to the next one. One of the things that we've asked, and this is something I've dove into with, with the help of Mike, of learning. You guys have seen this, right? You guys talked about this, leading from your strengths. Wiring versus character. I had all the Hispanic care leaders. So if you look at this, task is on the top and people are on the bottom. I had them all plot where they're at, just in a little app that we use, Poll Everywhere. And where would you hope our Hispanic care people would be? On the bottom half, and all of them were in the bottom half, which makes it, we're putting the right people in those situations. And then there's also people that were faster or slower, but I was more worried, like, hey, we want to make sure we have people that are people focused or people orientated that are leading those. The other one we've done, go to the next one, is everybody on our staff's done the 5 appreciation languages at work, and really for them to help lead their people better. If they know that all the people in their group are quality time, then they need to budget in their time, more time to go sit with them and have conversations. But if it's words of affirmation, everybody's a words of affirmation in your group. Well, it's pretty easy to take 10 minutes to jot down some postcards or send a quick email or text message. And then the tangible gifts, figuring out ways to make those fun and interesting. We had a high school teacher that cut out for parent-teacher conferences, cut out parent-teacher conference cartoons and every hour brought them to their Hispanic care people, just because, conferences can be a long 10-hour day, right? So, so that was really kind of the Hispanic, last slide. We do Fidelity checks, just kind of checking in. One, we're providing some learning around these things. I went around and asked all of our Hispanic care leaders, what do you want to know about? How can we better serve you? And that's what we did on the 10th. We'll do another one in April. And then also, like Joe did this in the fall, going around and just checking with everybody. Hey, teacher A, who's your Hispanic care leader? And if they couldn't tell, but Joe found out 95% of them knew who their Hispanic care leader was, and 90 of them felt that somebody was checking in on them regularly. There are some gaps that we're figuring out. One of the gaps was who's checking in on the leaders. And so we've righted that. So we figured out that we need to either, one, principals, we talked to them, doing more of that on their calendar, but also having Hispanic care people have a buddy, have a partner, so they can check on each other. Because one of the things that they're very selfless people, and they're like, well, we don't want to burden the principal. Well, that's part of our job in leadership, is to make sure we're checking in on our leaders for sure. So, yeah, any other, I guess the last one was questions that you may have.
I'm just going to comment that I've heard from different staff members that this is really appreciated, especially when they were sick, during the last couple of years or anything like that. It was very helpful. Anybody else? Discussion? Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Curriculum handbook presentation. The board.
give Jose a moment to pull up the policy that we're taking a look at tonight. I am here tonight to present the curriculum management and assessment system policy, answer any questions that you might have, and take any feedback that you might have. This is kind of an informational session tonight, and then we'll come back and take a look at it for a more formal vote at a later meeting. The curriculum management and assessment system is designed to formalize some processes that we have been using within the district, but haven't necessarily had written down. They've been passed through word of mouth. I've been in the district almost 20 years. And so when a new principal came in and they asked, what do we do about curriculum? I said, well, this is what we've done in the past. This is how we've done it. And so we know that in order to create systems, we need to have those things written down. And we think that it's really an important component for us to have written down, because the resources that we provide our teachers to work with our students are critical. And so this particular policy that you're taking a look at has three main components. The first component is really what I consider the filters that we use as a staff when we are looking at any sort of resource. Does it support our district mission and vision? Does it meet our instructional framework? I just want to scroll up a little bit. And then does it also meet our essential competencies, which are listed on the next page? These are all components that our teachers use when they are planning learning experiences for our students. And so we want to make sure that the resources that we put in our teachers' hands also align with these components. The second part of this plan outlines the different roles that people and groups have in this process. So if you scroll up to the next section, it talks about roles and responsibilities, starting with the Board of Education. We've got an awkward page break there that we need to fix. So if you want to scroll up some more. Starting with the Board of Education and the superintendent, taking a look at what the principals need to do, what a curriculum task force would need to do, our teachers. We have roles for parents in the process as well as students. And this document clearly outlines what the expectation of each individual is in this process. The third part of the policy outlines what does the process look like. So if we could scroll then to that next component, a little bit further beyond students and parents. We're going to go all the way to the next page. So what does the actual process look like? We envision the curriculum adoption process working on a 5-year cycle. And you'll notice that hyperlinked to this is a schedule that would have us looking at all of our core areas in a rotation. We also know that, I think about an elementary teacher who teaches reading, writing, math, social studies, science. We don't want to be placing new resources in that teacher's hand all at one time. And so a cycle is important. It's also the capacity of what does our leadership team have the capacity to be looking at. And so we really kind of see that with a focus on one each year. The key task force that would be working in this group, we really want to have a good cross-section of representation on this task force. And so we would look for administrator and teacher to co-lead this group. We would want to make sure that we also have an additional administrator from the grade span that we would be looking at. Most resource adoptions happen in grade spans that typically look at PK4, PK5 to grades 5 through 12. And so we would want to make sure that we're having representation that way. We would want 4 teachers, at least 4 teachers that actively instruct in that content area, including a special education teacher. We want to make sure that we have are taking into consideration all student needs. And we also want to make sure that we have vertical articulation going on. So depending on the grade span that we're looking at, we want a teacher who is either from the grade level above or from the grade level span below, so that we are talking about how do these things work together. We want parent voice on this committee, as well as board member and, when appropriate, student voice. We know, particularly at our middle school and high school level, that student voice is important, but I've also seen student voice be really critical at the elementary level too. And so we'd want to have that voice play a role as well. So if you scroll just a little bit further, I can kind of walk you through, stop right there, the process that we envision. We see this as a 5-year cycle. And really kind of it starts in year 4 of the cycle, because it needs to start with a review of what we're currently doing. So in year 4 of the cycle, we would want to convene a task force that's going to be doing that review, taking a look at student achievement data. Are we getting the results we want? As well as implementation data. Are our teachers using the resources the way that we anticipate that they should be using them to get the results we want? Based on the results of that review, we may say the resources we're using are adequate. They are doing exactly what we want. We're getting the results we want. Or we may say, no, we're not getting the results we want, or we're not seeing the implementation we want. We need to move further. Right? In that 5th year, then we would really dive into the work of taking a look at available resources and bringing 2 or 3 to the task force for their review around a set criteria. What do we know about teaching and learning, and how do these resources match up to that? And going through that process and choosing the 2 or 3 curriculums to pilot in our classrooms, taking a look at the actual results from those pilots, and then making a recommendation to the Board of Education. Based on the acceptance of that recommendation to the Board of by the Board of Education, we would then spend the spring and summer of year 5 engaged in professional learning around those resources, and making sure that our teachers have the tools that they need to use those resources effectively. That brings us to year 1, which is kind of when we first implement that new resource. We want to make sure that we have ongoing professional learning as we are doing that. After a full year of implementation, we want to take year 2 and do an implementation study. Are our teachers using the resources the way we expected them to? And are we seeing expected results? And then we're going to adjust based on what we see there. Do we need additional professional learning? Do we need to make any tweaks? Year 3 and year 4 are that continuation of the implementation. As we get into year 4, then we're going to do that review process. So an ongoing process throughout. So that is kind of just a real quick summary of the process. I would be happy to entertain any questions or make any clarifications that you might need.
One thing I want to say, I just want to thank Marcia, and we've had a really large team of teachers and staff. Marcia spent over 2 years on this, because this is a very time-consuming process in piloting it. We just presented at SIAC tonight. We also have been engaging some curriculum experts. We engaged Dr. Susie Mead, who was with the Prairie Lakes AEA. She's known as a curriculum expert in Iowa. She shared resources with us. We've been trying to also model from that. So just want to thank everybody that's been involved with this.
Yes.
I have questions.
Absolutely.
And they're little questions for just editing. I don't even know if this is the right place for it, but the first one, it's probably not editing. That very first sentence under purpose. The purpose of the Charleston Community School District curriculum and assessment management system is to provide a framework for the alignment of the developed and executed curriculum. That's
Okay. you'd like to see a little bit of clarity. I mean, basically what we're trying to say there is that we want to set a framework so that we know how we're choosing curriculum and the process that we're going to go through with that. So we can certainly bring clarity to that sentence if we find that confusing.
Yeah, I mean, when you say provide a framework for the alignment of the developed and executed curriculum. I don't know that that's what that says what you just described.
Okay.
Alignment would speak to the grade levels aligned. So
Yeah,
if fourth grade not aligned with fifth grade, it creates issues.
I think, yeah, we want to make sure that, I think this was a great question that a parent had at SCI. We want to talk about, we see this cycle as being looking at PK-12 curriculum ongoing, so that what we're choosing at the elementary is aligned to what they're using at the secondary as well.
I guess that needs to be.
So we can certainly bring clarity to that sentence if that's unclear, for sure.
That doesn't say that to the novice. And I guess this is probably not necessarily for the novice.
I would say we really see this as being a document for the staff and work, but it's available to anybody if you want to understand how our process works.
Yeah, so I guess I would say that we probably should be as clear as possible.
Okay.
Using, in the second sentence, using the word comprehensive, that's an opinion word. It may or may not be. I think that you just say the system provides the structure to ensure quality. I'm not sure why somebody wants to put the opinion that whoever wrote this. It's comprehensive. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. Whoever reads it can decide whether it's comprehensive.
Okay.
System, the second paragraph, yeah, things like the word also. I don't mean to be nitpicky, but I'm just doing some.
Sure, and I would be happy, if it's editing type things, if you wanted to share those with me.
We can do
outside of that, I would be happy to do that.
Yeah.
I would maybe like to entertain questions around like additional clarity that you might have about the process or things that need to happen.
Gets down to, and I asked this on our committee.
Yeah.
And I asked it again, but still don't get it. When you're on that first page at Charles City community, which I appreciate you put that sentence in. You have these 5 bullet points and they follow until you get to the last one. And I still don't get the last one.
Sure. So when I think about, or when we talk about students being able to construct their own knowledge, we are really talking about the difference between teachers lecturing at students and trying to like push knowledge into them that way versus creating experiences where students have to take that knowledge that's been shared and then use it in a way that builds upon the knowledge that they already have. So it's about constructing and applying and using the knowledge.
Instead of giving the kid the cookie, you're giving you're giving the students the ingredients.
The recipe, yeah.
The recipe in there.
When you, I get that. That's kind of explanation, but isn't that sort of covered in the other bullet points?
So
everybody's taking charge of their own learning.
Yeah, we've had really good professional conversation around exactly those 2 bullet points. And I think that the distinction that I've made for staff when we talk about that is when we think about kids, our students taking charge of their own learning, we're really talking about student choice in that way. And so that in the experiences that learning experiences we're creating for students, we want to give them opportunities to have control over how they're demonstrating their knowledge or choice in maybe the pace in which they're approaching that. So I think really what we're looking at is kind of, there's a nuance to the difference there between student choice and students applying the learning.
Let's go to later high school if somebody's taking a pre-calculus class and you're trying to decide what curriculum to use to teach calculus. I guess I don't understand. to me, by the time from the time you start to the time you finish that class, there's a certain amount of knowledge that you're supposed to have gained.
Mhm.
And at a certain level,
Mhm.
if you're going to move on. to
Absolutely.
anything in mathematics. And it's not something the student's going to be able, they don't get to decide what it is they're supposed to learn.
True, but they might get choices in how they're going to learn it, how they're going to demonstrate that they learn it.
I guess I got a problem with that, but is that how things are done? Because I'm thinking when I was in medical school, that's not how it worked.
Did you have the choice of like doing a presentation or writing a paper?
Nope.
So that would be
I
boring.
never had a choice. Nobody in our school
Yeah.
ever had a choice.
And I would say that is
By the
one of
time
the
you
things
got
that we
done,
want
it
to
was
do. Yeah.
That's the issue.
Yeah, I think the research is showing that one way to engage students and keep them involved in wanting to learn is by giving them options to choose how they can demonstrate their learning. And so that is a very
I just
important part
remember
of
getting tested a lot.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And I think it's important, Dave, I think you make some good points, but I think it's important to recognize too, you know, it's like the language that is being used in this document, sounds like it's internal. So
Yeah.
This is be for our teachers.
Mhm.
We're recognizing that we need students and parents to be a part of this to help make the language approachable to that group of people. And then also recognizing too, we're talking about education of K through 12 and like, you know, your experience of like medical school.
Or
would just
even
be-
college.
or even
None
college.
of my high
Right.
school, none of my, did we ever get a choice?
Right.
We never got a choice.
Right.
You
So-
just did
Sure.
it.
And as much
Yeah.
as I want to say you probably graduated last year, we'll just have to recognize that things are probably between pre-K through 12. and then college.
So I'll give an example. My son right now is working in his reading class and they have been studying Greek mythology. And so he has had the option, I think there's 9 different options of how he can demonstrate his understanding of some of the myths. He is creating a website. He has written a paper and I don't know that he's quite decided what his third option is going to be because it's a scale piece. So there are opportunities like that for students to play to their strengths. My son is very interested in technology, so writing a website for him is much more interesting than doing a creative painting. I can think of some students who could do a painting that would bring incredible detail to their understanding of what that is.
And Marcia, can I add something?
Absolutely.
Something that's very new for society in the last 20 years is what I call the economy of knowledge. Knowledge is unbelievably cheap anymore because we can Google so many facts. At one time, we had to memorize so many facts because if you didn't, you wouldn't remember. So for example, my 2000 Chevy Silverado, once the check oil light goes off, like how do I reset it? I used to have to remember that because I couldn't remember, right? Now I can Google it. I have to shut it off, put it in run, and then press the accelerator all the way down to the bottom of the floor, right? But now, instead of using my neural pathways for that, I can use it in other ways. So we've had to work away from less fact recollection because the kids just don't need it. There's so much knowledge, it's so cheap at the fingertips, but more of how are you going to apply it? How are you going to use it? You know, I know less about how my pickup works rather than what I can do with my pickup, how it can be a useful tool.
Oh, yeah. Is that okay?
I mean, I guess besides editing.
I was
We'll
going to
figure
say,
out
if there are
stuff.
things that I can bring to clarity around the curriculum.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's essential competencies. Tell me what the point of that being in the curriculum management system is.
I think that when we look at all of the different components that our teachers use when planning learning experiences for students.
Let me just go to again, any subject, but I'm going to pick on high school kids. Say you're teaching biology. You try to pick out a biology class. How is it that any of these make any difference about which curriculum you're going to?
So if my daughter is in a biology class, I want her to be able to think critically about the different muscle systems or the different systems so that she can apply that knowledge.
Yeah, I mean, that you're using those kind of things. This says that these essential competencies are something that part of the portrait of a graduate.
Yes, this was the portrait of a graduate was a joint process. I think it's explained in that paragraph between parents, community members, business owners about what are some of the skills beyond knowledge that our students need to have when they graduate. And so,
Right, so in biology, where does that come in? What you want, biology knowledge, all this other stuff. I mean, none of this stuff is inappropriate, and I want teachers to model this. This is fine.
Right.
You know, this is what parents do at home also. But I mean, if I'm picking out a biology textbook, why do I need to?
I'm going to look at I'm going to have my students be able to demonstrate some of these skills in the activities where they're also using that biology knowledge. So I think that is a really important component for them to think about.
Somehow this will help.
I need to be able to effectively communicate my understanding of biology. I need to be able to, if my first thought, my first approach to a situation in the class doesn't pan out, I've got to be able to adapt.
I guess what I'm saying is that what this thing is doing is you get to this curriculum adoption task force and you're picking between, let's just say, A, B, and C biology.
Yeah.
How is this going to help you decide that? I mean, why is it this here? This is something that's important. I hope all teachers are doing this every day.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think if the resource,
choosing which curricula you want. So phonics, because the teachers were choosing the phonics, sounded to me like they were choosing about which one actually did the job.
Absolutely. And so sometimes,
but they model all of this stuff, all of those teachers do on a daily basis.
Absolutely. And they model it in the lessons that they're creating. And so if we're looking at a biology textbook that has examples that incorporate students being able to adapt or communicate, as opposed to one where it is just listing out facts, we want our teachers to have that resource at their hands.
So kind of what you're saying is, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, that this district mission, vision, instructional framework, and the essential competencies are the filters through which we live, like teachers live life.
Right.
In Charleston City Community School District.
Yeah, and those are the filters in which they create the learning experience.
It's just something that you keep in mind while you're doing whatever you're doing.
Can I read a quick passage? We must remember that intelligence is not enough. Intelligence plus character, that is the goal of true education. The complete education gives one not only power of concentration, but worthy objectives upon which to concentrate. The broad education will, therefore, transmit to one not only the accumulated knowledge of the race, but also the accumulated experience of social living. Martin Luther King Jr., 1947. So, to be honest, much of what we're doing is framed through that knowledge too, because when we ask ourselves, what is the purpose of education? It's intelligence plus character. So we have an obligation to do that as well.
I just hope when we're picking a biology book, we pick the best textbook with what we need to learn in biology. So.
Agreed.
I think that's the goal.
I think what we're all kind of coming to the conclusion of is we appreciate that this system is being put into place. Marcia, thank you for putting this document together. We recognize that there's edits to be made, which we have Dr. Schroed here to do that, which I appreciate. And that we want to choose what's best for our students.
So I'm getting cut off here, which is fine. I don't want to take too long here. I've got another work ahead of me. So, but I have some more things, so we'll get together.
I will be happy to sit down with you for sure.
Thank you, Marcia. Thank you.
Next, we'll have the school calendar public hearing.
Is there any public comments on the school calendar? I have no written comments. So
Get that 3 times.
any public comments? And last time, any public comments? Like I said, there's no written comments.
We're closing the hearing on the calendar for next year. Okay, now we're gonna move on to the school calendar, and this is an action item under the item on the agenda. There's a copy of next year's school calendar. So we just need to approve it. Are there any? There a motion?
I make a motion to approve the 2022, 2023 school calendar as presented.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the 2022, 2023 school calendar as presented. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries to approve the 2022, 2023 school calendar as presented. Next item is early retirement.
This is always makes me really sad. It's bittersweet. We're gonna say 4 of our best people that we love very dearly in our family have decided that it's that time, and they're going to ask for the early retirement option. Again, we have 1 more year to celebrate them, and so it's here for the board's approval.
The year of retirement is
It's 2023.
next year.
Yeah,
So
And-
they'll be here for next.
for next year, yeah. And we put this into place so that because of the hiring teacher shortages and things like this gives us like another a year and a half to be able to try to find somebody. Was that a couple of years ago?
We do. We're able, there's really 3 hiring seasons. One's right at Christmas when the graduates come from mid-year. Then we say around March, spring break time. And then obviously summer, and you don't want to be at summer. You're kind of late to the game. So what this allows us to do is run our first round of hiring even as early as Christmas. And then we also do a lot of recruitment, try to connect with people.
Can I ask a question? So maybe I'm reading this wrong, but it looks like there's 2 different options for 2023 retirement. One is 50% base salary, one is 25% base salary.
Yeah, if they decided to retire, well, you can answer this. If they decide to retire for the next year, I mean.
So
at the
option
end of
1
this
is if they
year.
let me know February 1 this year, that they're gonna teach next year, they'll get 50% of what their base pay was at the end of next year.
So if they announce in the 2021, 2022 school year by February 1st, then they would be that they're retiring June of 23.
They would qualify for option 1.
Okay.
If they announce February 1st that they're retiring at the end of this year, they would qualify for option 2, at 25% of what their base salary would be. So there's just an incentive to give them, if you give us a year notice, instead of half a year notice.
So we wouldn't have the option for 2023 retirements for option 2 yet.
Yeah, it says there were no option 2 applications for June 30th, 2023, so I just want to be
Oh,
transparent.
that
with the
should be
board.
2022,
2022
shouldn't it?
is what it
Oh,
should be.
yeah.
I missed that too.
Sorry.
Okay, I just want to make sure I got the right years. Okay, thanks.
Okay. So, so the people that will be retiring, this is a lot of good stuff and good memories here. The Eric Hofer, 33 years of service. I can't quite say Albert, but Rusty Rogotsky, 17 years of experience. Steve Stallsmith, 36 years of experience. And Jim Lundberg, 40 years of experience. So I would just like to read here what it says. On behalf of the board, community, and administration, we express deep gratitude and appreciation to these staff members for their tireless work on behalf of the students of the Charles City Community School District. And a loss of experience, but they have a right to retire too. So,
And we hope that there's still voices in our community.
right, and I hope they sub.
Yeah, we hope they come back some immediately.
I'll
Okay,
make a motion to accept the resignations and applications for early retirement as recommended.
it's been moved and seconded to accept the resignations and applications for early retirement as recommended. All those in favor say, oh no, is there any other discussion?
Is there any way we can reject
You can't.
Don't vote yes.
it? They're going no matter what.
Yeah.
You got a year to.
Yeah.
Get on things.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say aye. We've accepted their resignations and applications for early retirement. Okay, approval of form of tax exemption certificate.
Yeah, so the next two items are gonna be roll call votes. So this is on top of the February 1st meeting. It's just the legal documents that came in. We're a tax exempt entity, so the first one we have to do is to prove that this project is to be done with tax exemption. So I just need a board member, if you guys choose to move it, and then board member second it, and I'll take a roll call vote.
Roll call.
Just one second.
Sorry.
Just going in the blanks.
So Rottinghouse.
Yes.
Fox.
Yes.
Dr. Schroep.
Yes.
Mac.
Yes.
Berglund.
Yes.
So that one passes 5-0.
5-0, yes. Passes 5-0.
So the next item is the resolution authorizing the issuance of the 1,076,000 general obligation school capital loan notes, series 2022, levying a tax for the payment thereof, and authorizing the execution of loan agreement. This is pretty much the release of money from the bank that we agreed to on the first meeting. So it's just giving them permission to release the money to the school district, and then we will pay it back based on what we discussed.
Is this the,
Right.
Yep, this is North Grand project.
so this thing.
TLC.
Tax, it's money that's already there, right?
Correct. So
And it's money that we're using to pay for things that was previously decided.
Right.
that's correct.
This, the severing of the TL,
Right,
the
right,
building.
and stuff that had been talked about at the previous board.
Right.
That's correct.
That's correct. Good clarification. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion. I don't know if there is.
I'll second.
Yeah, there's been. Yeah, moved in second, we'll have a roll call vote.
Rottinghouse.
Yes.
Fox.
Yes.
Dr. Schroep.
Yes.
Mac.
Yes.
Berglund.
Yes. The resolution authorizing the issuance of 1,076,000 general obligation school capital loan notes, series 2022, levying a tax for the payment thereof and authorizing the execution of a loan agreement has passed. 5-0. Mr. Fisher, Superintendent goals.
Justin, can you give me share rights? So this has been an ongoing journey for us. When I first got here, there were superintendent goals, there were school board goals, and then there were strategic plan goals. And sometimes there's some overlap, sometimes there's some alignment, oftentimes there wasn't. So the past few years, we've been working really hard to create that alignment and that we're all moving in the same direction. Now, there's multiple sets of goals I have. One's a more of a personal set that I use with personal coaching, different things about my own leadership. But specifically what President Rottinghouse I've been working on for the evaluation is that you have some clear, credible data on my work. In the past, in our evaluation, I would just write a long document with all the things I had done throughout the year. And while that's nice, it's also nice to be able to not just take my word for it, but be able to look at the things that we're actually doing according to the work that we have. So much of this is similar because it's really just an abridged version of our entire strategic plan. But what it does, it really narrows it down to just what we are doing right now in this year. And so you can see the Iowa standard for school leaders. There's now 10 standards, so you can reference that. And there's one other piece. You can also look, so you can see the vision success criteria, what we're attempting to accomplish, what it looks like if we accomplish it. Then you see the Iowa standard for school leaders. Then as you go through, I've really narrowed this down. You can see what we're currently working on. Oh gosh, got crazy there. My mouse. So for example, this is the engagement competencies action plan. You see all the things that we're currently working on, and you can see the alignment to the Iowa standards for school leaders. So you can see what we're accomplishing. You see the target date and the target end date, and you see the status of it. As we get into my evaluation time, we can then provide more evidence. There's action plans and even meatier stuff we want to get into of like why that isn't working on it, why, why we're not there. For like example number 3, that'll probably always be working on it. We always want to continue to meet our proficiency goals. But you can see the new curriculum review management plan says it's not started because, for example, down here, number 6, we're still working on that. Adoption of a curriculum pilot selection review system. So eventually, pending board approval, that would go green. And then once that goes green, then we'll go down here in the red, we'll go into yellow because we'll start reviewing our curriculum. And you can see we already have some things that we've completed this year as well. And as you go down through, the engagement of what we call reinvent, this is more the application of the work of what we're doing. You can read through that. There's sometimes sub-steps as well. Equity, obviously, equity tends to be all the same standard, which is standard 3 of equity. That's a little easier. And you can see what we're doing. And again, we have a lot going on. I would say equity, we actually did too much too fast. And so that's been something we've been working on with our equity leadership team. And then leadership, you can see what we're doing for our leadership work and what's been accomplished already. Then again, there should be more of these green. As these things turn green, then we'll add more. We'll add like step 7, step 8, step 9 as we clear stuff out. Culture, supporting customers. This is for our staff and parents. And then culture leadership for our primary customers, which is our students. So just want to share this tool out so you're aware of it, and then that we can use this as a actual metric scoreboard of what we're doing for evaluation. Right there. What questions you might have? I just wanted to teach you how to use this tool and what it looks like, and again, it'll be constantly updated as well.
So maybe like one of the things just help us understand how the goals are determined.
Yes. So each one of these goal areas, first of all, this goal area goes back to 4 years ago, and we had board members a part of this. None of them are on the board anymore, but we actually went through what was called Strata. You were on it.
Yeah.
Strategic operations, which then we synthesized with our leadership team. We had some teachers a part of it. We had board members a part of it, of like what are 4 focus areas, and some of those have changed. Originally, signature programming was one, but we got that done and cleared that out. So now you have these 4 big focus areas, which we call hedgehogs, what we want to be the best in the world at. And then we have leadership teams at each campus. We call these generally execution or teams. And not the like executioner. They always give me grief about that. They feel like that has a bad connotation. But in terms of execute, in terms of getting the work done. So we get input from staff. And the leadership works to synthesize this, and then we script out exactly what the steps are. So everything goes with the end in mind. Going back to the beginning, Josh. So what we do is we look at a little farther. We look at the success criteria, and then we backwards map. If that's where we want to be in 5 years, then we backwards map the steps that it'll take to get there. Did I answer your question?
Well, those are the district goals, right?
Yes.
Your goals. So how are those aligned and how are those determined?
I mean, with the board and the conversations we've had, and what the feedback I got in my last evaluation with everybody was, Mike, you brought this like nice sheet of all these random things you've done. Right. We'd rather see alignment to how we're actually moving the district forward, those pieces.
So how does how do we help help setting those? Like, what is our participation?
I think it goes back to that strategic planning process and those pieces. And then if there's specific things that the board wants to make a priority, for example, we do have a facility strategic plan that's separate of this. And obviously that's a goal of the organization as well. But I know one of the feedback I got, and President Rottinghouse really pushed on me too, wanted to show how the work you're doing is advancing our core business of teaching and learning. But obviously if there's specific things in facilities or finances that you want to see on there, that would be a separate. We do have a strategic plan for those areas as well.
So then would success be measured at the end by achieving, your, you go back to your success criteria, right? So,
yeah,
pick one of those, right? Number 4, have a path to engage and live their passion.
Have a path to live, engage and live their passions.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
So like that, achieving that is success.
So what you would look at there, the connection you might make there is going back to like this 2.1. Number 2, do we have the pathways in alignment? Are we getting kids out into work experience? Are we getting them into apprenticeship? Because that's an example of how you want to live and engage, what your passion areas are. Think of when we had Landon Luff present, he's working at Schwartz Rocks, more of that. And then you can And then based on the evidence I provide you and the evidence that you guys gather as well, have we made adequate progress on that? Have I been putting enough time and attention? Because as you know, the board evaluates superintendent, and superintendent has finite energy. So you guys have to help direct me of where you want me to spend that energy.
So thinking about, we have student board members on here. Do they have any thoughts on this idea? I can tell they're really excited to talk about the superintendent.
What are you specifically asking?
Well, I mean, I don't know if they've had the opportunity to see this. If they have thoughts on, like, we look at our end in 5 years, is that where they think our school is, how they feel how we're getting there?
Is that the same thing that you put, like, we just had that meeting with you, with students, is that the same place where you put those, or is that something different?
Some of it is, I did a focus group with students. I do that once a month. We give pizza and they give me all their feedback on different things. And that's some of the things we talk about. It does inform the work that we're doing. I can't necessarily say the TVs are on the strategic plan, but there were definitely things that you guys talked about, engagement and things that, classes are boring or this is not, fun for us. And we take that and absolutely inform that as well, the best we can.
And I would say the TVs maybe come under better communication, but I hear.
Mike,
Other questions?
describe what I asked you to get together.
Yeah, I don't know if I can talk about it right here, but I think we can do, maybe at the end when we do big ideas, we can bring it back up. So, yeah, absolutely.
So, yeah, so anyway, I just want to say, of course, the evaluation, these are the different standards and what they go through now. If there's something that comes up that's on a different standard, definitely can talk about it, with the evaluation. If you want to, right?
Yeah,
absolutely. I don't know, could we, if we've already set the goals, we'd kind of be
Yes,
changing the
you
goal
can.
line for them.
You can. This is the main evaluation. I checked it out. So,
Well, when this says, are we supposed to approve something first of all?
not, well, I guess to approve his goals as discussed. But they're aligned with the district goals, which have already been approved. So maybe we don't have.
I guess I was,
It was just,
Yeah.
that you guys are accepting the goals.
It's not a motion.
Yeah, it should be a motion. It's an action item.
I'll make a motion to approve Superintendent Fisher's goals as discussed. Second.
I'll second. Okay.
so the,
Been moved and seconded. So is there any discussion?
just to be clear about what is it that the goals are? Is it the standards that come up, the Iowa standards for school leaders, or is it just everything on that whole spreadsheet?
Well, the Iowa standards for school leaders,
Mhm.
and we talked about this one of your first meetings, I think, but those were just changed last July. So they're kind of new thing. And they are encouraging that to go with the strategic plan of the district. Okay? So, and all of them, each one of them is more student-centered than they used to be, I think. It says for all students to promote.
Yeah, these came from somewhere else, though.
Right.
We just kind of lifted it off.
From the legislature,
Yeah,
actually.
right.
Yeah, last year.
There used to be 6 standards, now there's 10.
Now there's
Yeah.
10.
This-
Okay.
There's stuff like this back there, something 2015. and I looked at the other day.
Right, that was the old one.
I think one of the examples of this too, this is like a classic, you see like this happen, is that the school district would have a bunch of student achievement goals, But then the board has a goal of, let's cut this deficit or this like really specific financial thing, which we have to do those as well. But this board has really made a commitment of they want to be aligned and for superintendent to be really engaged with the core business of teaching and learning. So that's just reflecting this as well.
And so the strategic plan and the superintendent goals are meshed.
Yeah.
I call for the question. Okay. It's been moved and seconded to approve Superintendent Fisher's goals as discussed. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Consideration of consent agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
As corrected.
Oh, as corrected, yeah.
Okay, is there a second? It's been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda as amended. Any discussion? Any further? Okay, all those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, same sign. Consent agenda is. Big ideas.
So Dr. Short asked me to share this big idea. It kind of goes with the curriculum. He suggested that we have like an at-a-glance curriculum map that shows scope and sequence, and he shared an example from a college in Michigan. So we've been working on that. Marcia DeVore, we have about maybe 50% done. And so eventually we'll get that finalized and put on the website so parents can have easy access. Marcia, would you just share even the draft to the board, just so they can see us working on it? You can kind of see where we're at. We just have to go and, fill in some of the blanks yet. So that'll be coming soon.
I think that comes back to the transparency piece of that. So to be transparent with the community about curriculum and standards that are happening in the district. Which once we all understood, it was like, duh, why are we up with that? Marsha, we realize it's a draft, but we appreciate you sharing. Absolutely.
You just want me to share with them.
Just with the private, yeah.
Oh, just with us.
I'm not planning to.
No, share the document.
Okay.
You only, so they can. see
I
what
thought
There was this pregnant pause.
I know, that's-
Everybody's waiting for it to go up on the
No.
screen, which is not what I was
Google-
planning.
Google share.
Yep, I'm doing that.
Thank you. Thanks for clarifying, Marcia. Any other big ideas from tonight?
How is that gonna be
The
available?
girls have some big ideas.
Oh.
I'll share it with you.
Okay, all right, fine.
But you guys have something?
Okay, so, one is for Mr. Board, like with the new curriculum that you're starting, how do you plan on getting parents involved and other community members involved? Because you can teach that at school, but when they leave, then it's where do you go from there?
Not sure I understand your question 100% Miracle, but one way we're going to involve parents is by having them be part of that curriculum task force. So that would be the first step. And then I think, if I'm understanding your question, is as we implement a new resource or a new curriculum, if we want to make sure that our families understand any changes that might bring or how it's going to look different from what kids have done in the past. Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, also how, okay, because the curriculum keeps changing every certain amount of years, but why is it changing? Because if y'all want to see growth and progress within this, you keep changing it, so something we were used to, we're not used to anymore. But
So if you remember that first step, or step one, is that we're going to review what we currently have. We're going to look at how are students achieving with it, and are teachers using it the way that it's expected to be used. And if we're getting good results with it and our teachers are using it the way that it's expected to be used, we don't necessarily have to change. That would be the decision that would be made, and we could move forward that way. So it doesn't necessarily automatically mean that every 5 years we're going to change something. It just means that every 5 years we have to go through the process of looking at it and deciding, is it doing the job that it's supposed to be doing.
and then when you do that, do you talk to the kids in like all grades? Because I know some things that work for other students, like work for some students, don't work for others.
Yeah.
So
And so that's where that student voice is going to come in. One of the steps we talked about is like piloting some of those curriculums. And so our expectation would be if it's a 5-12 pilot, that we would have like groups of maybe like 5th grade, 7th grade, 9th grade, 11th grade. And we would get student feedback from those pilots as well as what's worked for you, what hasn't worked for you. And we would work with teachers to collect that.
and when you get that feedback and stuff, what kind of students do you get? Is it like diverse?
We would certainly, we would certainly want to get from high achieving students, students who struggle, students who have IEPs, a very wide variety of students.
So I kind of have a question, like, has this already started that you guys have been adding more of the new curriculum, or is it still something that you are planning on to start in the future?
Yeah, so this process that we talked about, this is the process that we used when we have done curriculum adoptions at the elementary school with our math curriculum and with our reading and writing curriculum. This is a process that was a similar process that was used with math. I mean, we've gotten more specific and we've like things that we weren't doing, but we think are important for us to do, we've added to this. So we've used parts of it and now we're formalizing it and adding some things and saying, this is exactly how we want to be doing it.
Okay, thank you.
Got it.
Question. I have one more question. Is this just for the elementary or is this K?
It is preschool through 12th grade. So at any level, we would want to use this process.
Thanks, ladies.
Okay, wait, we have a couple more.
No, there's more. Okay.
Okay, I know, when we had our focus group, we talked about clubs and like trying to start clubs back up so we can get more like, different students involved and other like teachers involved and different people from the community, because like, instead of just having like the popular, like things going on, we can get things like chess or like, they got speech, like that speech club, like different things like that to add more, like it was in previous years before like COVID hit and things like that.
So
more variety.
Yeah.
So from that, that's a great question, Miracle. I'm working with Tom Harskamp, who's here tonight, and talking about what that looks like. Some of the things we've talked about is like esports. We've even talked about, some kids talk about like a board game club, things like that. We want to have more things for more kids. Also, the challenge is always transportation, who's going to supervise it, those types of things. But definitely look forward, because one of our big things is engagement. And we know kids that when they're doing things they love and enjoy, they're more engaged and they're happy and healthier. So, we really heard that feedback the other day, and I'm going to work hard with Tom to find some solutions for it. And a lot of it's going to be you guys leading us. Hey, what do we want? What do we need? That's how bowling started. That's how trap shooting started. I mean, we are, we're getting ready to have our first head, girls soccer coach. So that's how we continue to grow. Girls wrestling being sanctioned for next year. So there's a lot of cool things. We want to keep going.
Were there ideas that you had of things that needed to be restarted or new things that you wanted to start?
Well, not exactly like right now, but I just in clubs in general.
Okay.
And also like, what is like the time span? Like if you had, what would that be?
Likely, we could try to get something started this spring, but a lot of times it'll be, this summer or next year and get stuff rolling. But if we can get enough kids that are interested and really passionate about it, yeah, we can get something going sooner. We have a Taekwondo club. I don't know if you realize that, with Taekwondo that we did down at the middle school. DECA got restarted based on student interest. And what's the other one? Oh, robotics. Robotics is a big one. So there's new ones popping up all the time. I'll say the biggest challenge, Miracle, is adults. Just getting adults willing to either volunteer their time or come in late or come in early. So that's where we have to ask you. It's much more persuasive when you beg a teacher than when I do. So that's what you got to just like nag, Mrs. Boss, just constantly about, hey, will you stay after school and run this club for us? Like, pick band, things like that.
Right. I think it would be like good for people to know that we're interested in starting clubs, because then maybe students would have like an idea to bring it up to people.
Sure.
I got my post note from Mr. Harskamp. We're definitely talking about it. I'll tell him to get in touch with you guys.
And one more thing, also, how do we get that out there more? Because like, I didn't know we had a like Taekwondo club.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't know anything like that. And I know a lot of people don't really know about robotics either. Like, they don't know you have these things.
let me talk with Harsh Camp, but I think it's gonna be sitting down with you guys and asking you like, what's the best way to get information out, and I think sometimes we think we know how to get information to you, and then we don't know it all. So we just need to ask, like, is it TikTok, is it a messenger pigeon, do we put it on the TVs, what's gonna be the best for you to get the information. So I'll have Harsh Camp, I'll tell them, get a focus group with you guys going again and get more information.
Thank you.
That was a great focus group you guys did. You ate all the pizza too, so it was cool.
Is there a
Okay.
student council for high school?
Yeah, there is. I have another thing. Okay.
We turn her.
That's awesome. We love you to ask questions. Great.
Okay, so Mr. Commissioner, for yours, like the goals and stuff, is there a time limit on having like everything done, like having everything in a green box or?
Well, if you look on there, there are start dates and end dates, and we do the best to try to hit those end dates. And sometimes we do, sometimes we don't. I would say a successful year is, if we were getting 75% of our goals there, we're probably doing well, but I can tell you we won't get all of them, just we run out of time. But then I'll tell you, Miracle, it's a never ending journey because every one of those plans, I think we're on a lot of them on step 7, step 6, and some of them have 20 some steps. So we really did create a 5-year plan. So this thing's going to take us, and every year we add another year. So this thing will take us up to 2027. So we just keep moving, keep moving, keep moving.
And this has started already.
Yeah, this work is we've been doing for really 4 years now. So.
And when do you know, like, when there's scripted?
So we have a lot of different metrics. So we have like our scoreboard, and we use data, and so every month our leadership team meets. Once a week our leadership team meets, and we review what's the status, where we're at, what's the goals, what's the challenges, what the barriers. So there's literally a check-in once a week on each one of these goal areas, because I'm working with the principals and the directors, like, hey, where are we at, what are we doing, what's the challenges, and sometimes I can be kind of grumpy about it. I'm gonna get my time this week. By evaluation, you gotta get done. So we have the conversation. What we do, we figure out what the pieces are. Next board meeting, we'll do metrics. So we see some of the metrics, kind of see if we're in the right places. With a lot of data, a lot of scoreboard we use internally. If everyone wants to know the data we use, it's really geeky, but I'll show it to you. Lots of spreadsheets.
Thank you.
Hey, you're welcome.
Okay.
Great questions. Great questions.
Thank you. Okay, any other big ideas or anything, anybody? Okay. There's important upcoming dates listed there.
Finance committee is canceled for the 7th.
Yeah, finance committee's canceled. Band concert, cops concert tomorrow night. Next board meeting's the 28th. Anything else? Okay, the meeting is adjourned at 7:45. Out of here. Okay. What?